In real estate, if you don't know your numbers, you're guessing. And in real estate, guessing costs money, a lot of it. You could find the right property, but if you miscalculate the renovation or don't run your refinance numbers correctly, you're done before you even start. So in today's video, I'm breaking down exactly how to estimate rehab costs and run a full BRRRR deal, step by step. And if you stick with me till the end, I'll show you the one number most investors miss that makes or breaks your entire deal. Hi, I'm Justin Brown, mortgage pro, real estate investor, and I've been doing this a very long time. So here's exactly what you need to know. So let's start with the estimated rehab cost. If you're new, the easiest method is to use a tool like Rehab Estimator Pro, or even just a simple spreadsheet with cost averages per square foot. I actually have a free one in my real estate community that I use, so I'll drop the link here in the caption so you could get a copy to use for your own estimates. But here's a rough way to break it down, and it all really depends on the size of the home, the finishes you want to use, and all that fun stuff. But you want to make sure you account for all these items in whatever tool you're using for your estimates. You got cosmetic updates like interior and exterior paint, flooring, fixtures. You got the kitchens and bathrooms. You could easily spend $10,000 to $20,000 on a kitchen, another $7,000 to $12,000 on each bathroom. You got mechanical systems like the plumbing, electrical, HVAC. You could expect to pay $5,000 to $15,000 each, depending on the age there. And then major repairs like the roof. Does it need new windows, foundation? These could add $10,000 to $40,000 fast. You got permits and contingencies, so I would always add another 10 to 15% extra for the unexpected. Once you come up with your estimates, you want to make sure you actually walk the property with your contractor and get what's called a scope of work. This is where they break down exactly every part of the project and the costs associated with it all. The more detailed, the better. You could always write the offer based on your estimate, but have an inspection contingency period where you could then go in with your contractor and see if your numbers are off or not, because then you have the ability to still cancel or try to renegotiate the price based on your updated numbers that you got from the contractor. Now let's run a full BRRRR deal analysis. Now BRRRR stands for buy, renovate, rent, refinance, and repeat. But here's the basic formula. You got the ARV, which is the after repair value. You typically want to take 70 to 75% of the ARV. This is your max all-in budget. And honestly, if I'm going to BRRRR the property, I usually need to stay at max 70% of the ARV or less. So from that number, you'll subtract your estimated rehab cost. What's left is then the max you should pay for the actual property. So let's do an example. If the ARV on a property, meaning after the reno's done, it'll be worth $300,000. Well, 70% of that is $210,000. And if I'm estimating $50,000 in rehab, that means the max I could pay for this property is $160,000. So once I know this property is going to cost me about $160,000 all in, I'm going to then plug in my expected refinance terms based on that. So to do that, you're going to want to talk to a mortgage broker to ask, hey, if I renovate this property, it's going to be worth $300,000, and when I'm done, I'm going to spend about $160,000 on it plus the $50,000 in rehab. So what is the maximum loan I'm going to be able to get in the future to maybe recoup all those costs if possible? Because ideally, I'm going to want to be able to refinance and recoup any money I paid out of pocket, any money I borrowed, and get it all back so that I got nothing left in the property. That's what makes a good BRRRR. And then once you've gone over all that information with the mortgage broker, you should know what your estimated mortgage payment's going to be and what the estimated loan terms are going to look like when it comes time to do that refinance. And you could see if one, you're going to be able to get all your money back out of the property, and if it's going to cash flow because you know what your future mortgage payment's going to be. So you could use a site like renometer.com or affordablehousing.com to check the local market rents, but I'd take it a step further and just call some local property managers to get a good idea of the rents you could expect on this home once it's fixed up. Your goal, again, is to get most or all of your cash back from the refinance after the work's done, and then when you have that new mortgage payment, that the rents you're going to be able to get are going to be able to cover that and then some so that it cash flows. And again, in my real estate community, I have a rental calculator to see if a property will cash flow once you have those numbers. But here's where most people mess up. They forget the holding costs and refinance costs you're going to have. So every month the property sits while you're doing all the renovations, you're still paying interest on your hard money loan that was used to buy and or renovate the property. You still have utilities, insurance, and property taxes to pay along the way. Then once you refinance, you're going to have lender fees, appraisal, title, escrow, closing costs all over again. So you got to make sure you factor all that in, because if you don't account for that, your cash out refinance might leave you stuck with way more cash in the deal than you expected. But again, you could get estimates for all this, and should, before you close on the initial purchase while you are doing all your inspections and verifying all your numbers. The quick math for me is the 70% of the ARV rule minus the reno costs, and that's your max price you could pay for the property. Then look at the estimated rents of the property and make sure those estimated rents are at least 1.5% of all the costs you're going to spend on this. So if you're going to be all in, let's say 200,000 on a property, 1.5% of that is going to be about $3,000, which means you want to see if the average rents are going to be at least $3,000 a month, and then it should cash flow. Now, I know it sounds impossible, but it's easier to do this on multi-units once you're going above $100,000 on costs on a project. For instance, I bought a property in Indiana for $50,000, spent $50,000 in reno. It's now worth $140,000, and the rents are $1,400 a month. So I spent $100,000 on it. It rents for $1,400 a month. It's a little less than the 1.5% rule, but it still works. And that's the number that separates a true BRRRR deal from a buy and hope it works strategy. So here's the checklist of things you need to know. You need to know your ARV based on solid comps. You need to know your estimated rehab costs with real numbers, not guesses. You need to calculate your all-in budget on what you could pay for that property and hold firm. You need to account for every dollar, the purchase, the rehab, the closing costs, the holding costs, and the refinance costs. And finally, check your refinance exit. Will you get your cash back? Will it cash flow? This is where real investors separate from the hobbyists. And if you want me to break down how I find and analyze real comps or show you a live BRRRR deal start to finish, drop it in the comments and I'll make it happen. I'll also drop a link here on how to comp or value properties as well. So make sure to like, subscribe, and hit that bell if you want to see part 4, because next I'm showing you how to build a team so you're not doing this alone.